it's Anna. I'm glad to be with you again this week. I wanted to tell you a little bit about some of the rallies that I attended, and I know a lot of you attended in the last few days. They've been fantastic, wonderful shows of power of the people on the street. I also wanted to tell you about a couple of events coming up next week. First to the rallies. First on Saturday night, Take Back the Night, the 31st annual Take Back the Night up in the Yonge and Eglinton area was fabulous. Really great spirits. Wasn't the biggest march ever, wasn't the smallest, probably right there in the middle, but women were very, very enthusiastic, very spirited in our calls for an end to sexual violence. Particularly impressed that the march was led and organized and with leadership from disabled women, members of the Ann Johnston Health Station who sponsored the rally with the Toronto Rape Crisis Centre, Multicultural Women Against Rape. So we had a great time Saturday night. It was a beautiful night to be out on the streets, walking, marching, rolling, and putting out those demands. Lots of people in the neighborhood stopped and wanted to know what was going on, and we got a chance to do some public education, so it was a really great evening. And then on Monday, I know lots of you were down at City Hall with me during the Rally for Respect, the Rally for Toronto, sponsored by the Labour Council at 5:30. Thousands of people down on Nathan Phillips Square. You wouldn't know from watching the mainstream media, but thank goodness we have Perlas and other alternative media so that we can find out what's actually going on in this city, because there was very little coverage in mainstream media. But the rally brought out thousands. Had a huge picket line around Nathan Phillips Square, song, dance, and speeches, and it was really great and good to see so many people out, people from all parts of the city. The rally was followed by another rally kind of education event that was put on by the Toronto Stop the Cuts network, and that again was well attended. The wonderful Faith Nolan and the Freedom Singers presenting songs of solidarity, followed by some speeches, followed by chances for people to get together in neighborhood-based groups, which have been meeting all summer. Again, I want to remind you, and many of those groups are still looking for people to become involved. The fight against the cuts is not over. I want to be really clear about that with folks. We're hearing in the papers today that City Council did agree on about $28 million worth of cuts. Many of the things that people have been strongly protesting and demanding that they be saved, many of those things were taken off the table, but only for now, and people need to understand that what the city has done, particularly Mayor Ford and his allies, what they've decided to do is to basically abdicate their responsibility for making decisions and put many of these decisions off until November, when they will come back in front of City Council as we get into our 2012 budgeting process at the city. So it's important for all of us to understand that these cuts are not off the table. Some decisions have been made, a very few decisions have been made. You can read about them at TorontoStopTheCuts.com. You can read about them at Torontoist.ca, and you can also read mainstream media and find out about some of those cuts. But what we do need to understand is that handing over a report or giving responsibility to city staff to make decisions about cuts is not the same thing as stopping them. And so we still need to be organizing in our neighborhoods and around these issues. And Toronto Stop the Cuts network is encouraging neighborhoods to continue to organize, to form neighborhood groups if they don't already exist, or to join in the ones that do exist, like those in Jane Finch area, out in Scarborough, the Malvern area, the Davenport Perth neighborhood, downtown Toronto East neighborhood, and many, many others, Parkdale in the west. Lots and lots of neighborhood organizing going on. So you can still get involved in that or start up a group opposing the cuts to programs and services in your own neighborhood. And I really encourage you to do that, because as I say, we're going to need to continue to come down to City Hall. We're going to need to continue to send those emails to our city councillors, particularly if you live in a ward where you've got a city councillor who's kind of what's considered mushy middle, the Josh Matlows, the folks in Ron Mosner, folks in some of the neighborhoods where Jay Robinson is another one, where councillors sometimes go left, sometimes go right. We need to see those folks really understanding from the people who live in their neighborhoods that they depend on them to do the right thing and to vote against these cuts. One of the proposals, for example, that still is on the table is looking at options for privatizing things like daycares. And we need to really fight back against that. The private sector does not deliver public services as well. There is no evidence that that's true, that they deliver those services as well or more cheaply than the public sector. The thing we've got to remember is the private sector is looking for profit. So when we privatize things like daycare or community centers or anything else that might be on the table, what we're doing is we're saying that we agree that there should be profits made off the backs of moms and their kids, parents and their kids, off the backs of poor people, older people who use services, and we don't want to see that happen. The other thing they're still looking at is increasing user fees for many programs, and again, that's going to hurt the people who can afford them the least most. We need our city council to be looking at raising taxes where they are able to, including things like the vehicle registration tax, which was foolishly taken off the table. We need city council to be looking at things like improving transit and getting back to the plans of Transit City, where there are millions and millions of dollars that are there available to help the city create new jobs, create better access by TTC to people who live in the suburbs of this city. So these are things that we still need to be fighting for, and I encourage you to stay involved. You can go to onetoronto.ca or torontostopthecuts.com to keep up on what's happening next and what you need to be looking out for in terms of City Council. So I will continue to see you at City Hall Chambers for sure. The one thing I wanted, one event I wanted to make sure that you knew about that's happening next week, that's on Facebook under Sisters in Spirit Vigil 2011. That's Sisters in Spirit Vigil 2011. You'll find it on Facebook. It's being organized by many different organizations, including the Native Women's Resource Center, Andean Incorporated, Council Fire, Amnesty International, Toronto Chapter, Toronto Rape Crisis Center, Multicultural Women Against Rape, and many other groups have come together to organize this vigil. This is, I believe, I'm not sure which one this is. I know that we've had vigils in the last couple of years, at least the 4th, I think. It's happening on the 4th of October, that's Tuesday, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Allen Gardens, which is downtown Toronto, for those of you who aren't in the downtown, south of Carlton Avenue and north of Gerrard, between Jarvis and Sherbourne. The Native Women's Resource Center, along with several partner organizations, is hosting the Sisters in Spirits Vigil. They're holding it at Allen Gardens, which is across the street from the beautifully renovated home of the Native Women's Resource Center. And what the vigil is always about and continues to need to be about is the importance and the necessity of raising awareness about the hundreds and hundreds of Aboriginal women and young women and girls who have gone missing or been murdered in this country, particularly on the West Coast, but certainly not only. There are highways right across this country where women who, in an effort to either escape violence, leave their home community to try to get into bigger communities where they need to go shopping, find work, do all the things that can only happen in bigger communities. Aboriginal women, while hitchhiking, are picked up and lost to us, lost to their families. When families of Aboriginal women bring complaints to the police, too often they are ignored, too often they are written off as having unstable lifestyles. Too often women who are marginalized, Aboriginal women who are doing sex work or living in the downtowns of big cities, their disappearances are ignored. And we saw in the Picton murders how that can lead to terrible tragedies in terms of the numbers of women lost to their families and their friends and their communities. This is happening, as I say, right across the country. It's happening in Ontario, it's happening in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, Alberta, BC, and the Maritimes and Quebec. And in the territories. So we need to see action. We need more than apologies from our federal government. We need proper schools for Aboriginal communities. We need proper supports for women. We need proper healing and supports for healing in Aboriginal communities to address the violence that goes on within communities. But we particularly need action to stop men from the abuse, the kidnapping and the murder of Aboriginal women and girls. This is happening at a pace that if it was happening in any other community in this country, people would be up in arms. They would be out in the streets. They would be demanding action on the part of the federal government. What we have right now in relation to Aboriginal women and kids, and indeed Aboriginal communities in total, is we have the federal government telling the provinces that these things are their responsibility, and the provinces telling the federal government that no, it's the Fed's responsibility, and in the meantime, no one takes responsibility. This is not something, this is not a case of saving Indigenous women, and there was an event last night at a film screening about the fact that Indigenous women don't need saving, but what they certainly do need is an end to the abuse, an end to the violence, an end to the neglect. They need the resources, and they need the respect, and they need the accountability from Canadians, from Canadian governments, so that Aboriginal women and girls can take the steps they need to protect themselves, to protect their families, and to protect their sisters, their aunties, their grandmothers, the elders in their community, and their children. So we need to be supporting that fight. We need to be out at this vigil on Tuesday, the Sisters in Spirit Vigil. We need to be raising the issues in the provincial election. I haven't heard a word about Aboriginal families or the issues for Indigenous peoples in this province. We need to be raising this with our MPs. Because we need to let them know that people have not forgotten about this, that the abuse and the tragedy and the genocides that have been committed against Aboriginal peoples are not a thing of the past in this country. These things continue. We continue to have a policy of assimilation, of neglect, of ignoring of Aboriginal peoples, and I assume the hope that these issues will go away. But I can tell you that Indigenous communities are not going away. They are stronger than ever. They are strong in their support of Aboriginal women and children, and we need to be there side by side at this rally and every day, in fact. So let's get out there next Tuesday. You can find information on Facebook. Sisters in Spirit Vigil 2011. 7 to 9 p.m. Allen Gardens in Toronto. I'll see you there.